Good afternoon. So, honorable members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be talking to you today. Allow, firstly, to apologize on behalf of Ambassador Zumlot, who is unable to be here today due to a family bereavement. Allow me also to thank the organizers for inviting me today, and in particular Andy Deere and Claire, who's chairing the event today, and the rest of the team and the fringe Liberal Demcorats of Palestine. Thank you. I will delve straight into it. There's a lot to say, and I don't want to take up too much time. I've been asked to speak a little about the situation on the ground. I'm afraid I have a little positive news. The situation on the ground is critical. The humanitarian situation is worsening across occupied territory, especially in Gaza, which has been under draconian-like Israeli siege for more than 15 years now. This impacts all area of life for Palestinians there, from health, education to the economy. Israeli regular bombardments of the coastal strip of land, most recently just yesterday, adds to the two, not only human but material. Without control of imports and exports at crossing that are at the mercy of Israel's military, no real economy can emerge. No humanitarian relief can be sustainable, and no real development can be undertaken. Needless to say, with no end in sight to this blockade and no political horizon, this has an enormous psychological impact on Palestinians in Gaza. The situation in the West Bank is no better. Just last month, the IMF declared the economic outlook bleak and made the point, as has been made repeatedly, that unless Israel restrictions ease and as long as a political situation remains elusive, no Palestinian economy will thrive. Israeli settlements expansion continues at pace. Let me remind you, please, that there is no greater obstacle to an equitable and fair two-state solution than a settlement project that claims the very land upon which one state is supposed to emerge. This year, Israeli government has advanced a record number of settlements units. Indeed, under Israeli 2018 nation-state law, settlements are deemed a national value, whose establishment and consolidation that the state will promote. This is actually written into Israeli law. This law also contains a clause declaring that only Jewish people have a right to self-determination, and a clause deeming all of Jerusalem Israel. As a side note, it is law like this that lay bare why Israel control over the Palestinian people is a form of apartheid. This particular government is dominated by settlers and supporter of settlements enterprise. But this is not about one Israeli government. Since the Oslo Accord were signed over 30 years ago, settlements have flourished. From some 250,000 settlers in 1993, there are now 700,000. This trajectory is clear, and so is the intent. Israel is working diligently and determinedly to prevent the emergence of a Palestinian state. Settler violence is also taking its toll. It's being sanctioned by a state and protected by an army. Since 2022, according to the UN, such violence has displaced at least 1,100 Palestinians from their lands, from their communities. A slow motion replay of the 1948 Hussein ethnic cleansing of Palestine, the Nakba. Ladies and gentlemen, the situation of Palestinian refugee remains unresolved and is worsening. In New York, just days ago, Philip Lazarani, the head of the UN's Work and Relief Agency, UNRWA, which is tasked with caring for Palestinian refugees, declared the situation absolutely unbearable. Absolutely unbearable. Yet international funding for the UN agency is dwindling as donor fatigue has set in. An agency that caters to the acute need of some 6 million is a chronic crisis with results that are already causing instability in Lebanon and which will only spread. We are, in other words, at an inflection point. If a two-state outcome is to be salvaged, action, not rehydration, is urgent. In all of this, the UK has been less than helpful. Yes. While the official position of the UK government has been in line with international law and international resolutions, and the UK calls for two-state independent and sovereign state to live side by side as the ultimate resolution, British action have belied that position. Thus, the UK is opposed to Palestinian attempt to take Israel's illegal occupation to international fora, both to hold Israel accountable and to determine the status of Israel's occupation under international law. The UK opposed attempt to refer Israel to International Criminal Court over its action in occupied territory. The UK similarly opposed our attempt to refer Israel's occupation for an advisory judgment at the International Court of Justice. Remarkably, we are always told that armed resistance will not solve our problem. But when we attempt diplomatic solutions, the door is closed in our face. In addition, the UK is negotiating a free trade agreement with Israel, which in its draft form has made not a single mention of Israeli occupation. Indeed, it didn't make any distinction either between Israel and occupied territory. This is very dangerous development since it legitimizes Israeli settlements in occupied territory by omission. Now, the UK has a unique historic responsibility in Palestine. It created the problem in the first place, and it's failing in its duties. Distinguished guests, there is hope. But as I said before, it needs action. It needs actions. We greatly appreciate the Liberal Democratic position in recognizing the state of Palestine, bringing the UK into line with 138 out of UN's 193 members. We are also happy to see the party committed to the proper labeling of settlements goods. But we urge more. Yes, we urge more. First, we urge the Liberal Democrats to take a clear stand on the so-called boycott bill, a bill that explicitly protects Israel from the kind of action that might actually have an effect. In a country that values individual freedom, it seems odd that a bill that very clearly violates such freedom in the interest of a foreign state should even have got this far. Second, we urge the party to make clear its opposition to a trade agreement with Israel that does not hold the country to account for its breaches for international law. Thirdly, we urge the party to take a clear stand on justice in Palestine and international law. It's clear that Israel is in a breach of international law. It's clear that the settlements are a war crime under international law. It's clear that Israel is guilty of imposing an apartheid system on the Palestinian people. It's clear that, in spite of international resolutions supported by the UK, Israel has no intention of working to implement a two-state solution. It has no intention of withdrawing from Jerusalem, one of the key issues in any resolution, and no intention of recognizing refugee rights. Politely asking Israel to adhere to international law, it clearly doesn't work. So more is needed. A ban on settlements goods and products would be a good start. An injunction against British companies working in and profiting from these settlements would be another. Labeling products as originating in an Israeli settlement is fine, but why stop there? And we urge to support a Palestinian demand for an international conference under the UN umbrella and based on international law and international resolution to once and for all end the issue. This is about so much more than Palestine. This is about the global rules-based order. This is about international law. It's about simple common sense. If we are committed to internationalism, we must be committed to international law. And for any law to be fair and just, it must apply to all equally. It must apply in Ukraine and it must apply in Palestine. There can be no law without consequences. There will be no respect for any law anywhere unless there is accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about time Israel was held accountable for the sake of peace in the Middle East and for the sake of the global rules-based order. Thank you.